Hey, thanks so much for joining me today. My name is Linnea Baker, and I am a board-certified family nurse practitioner. I'm really excited to get to be here today and to share a little bit of information with you that I hope brings value to you and helps you on your personal health journeys. Today, we're going to be talking about burning fat versus storing fat and what's the secret. I really took most of this from the book, The Complete Guide to Fasting, and the author is Dr. Jason Fung, who is the guru when it comes to diabetes. He's actually a nephrologist out of Toronto, and when it comes to fasting and diabetes, he's the guru. So really fascinating book that I'll share with you at the end. 2 weeks ago, we talked about debunking calories in, calories out. And then last week, we talked about the fridge and the freezer and the different places we store energy. And today I want to talk about how we can use our fat stores. Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about when we talk about fat stores is insulin, because insulin is the key hormone responsible for the body storing and using food as energy. So it can either store the food as energy or it can signal the use of food as energy, okay? It has two major functions, insulin does. It allows your body to start using food as energy, or it helps store the excess energy. And there's two ways we store energy, okay? Glucose can be stored as glycogen in the liver, but there's a max capacity that can be held in the liver for the glycogen stores. So once those are full and we've reached our limit in the liver, then glucose is turned into fat. And this process is called lipogenesis, which actually really just means making fat from new. So then the fat that's made can be stored either in the liver or fat deposits in the body. There's no limit to the amount of fat that can be created, okay? So glycogen stores can get full and we have a limit, but there's no limit on the fat. So insulin levels actually matter. I want you to think of insulin as a hormone as fat storing. When we think of insulin, we should think of fat storing. And why do I say this? Well, when we ingest food, that's what triggers our insulin levels to go up, and we store sugar in the liver, and we produce fat in the liver, okay? That's when our insulin levels rise in response to us eating. When there's no food, insulin levels go down, and we start burning the stored sugar, and then once we've gone through most of those stores, we'll burn the body fat. And the body exists in two states, just to simplify this, and I love how Dr. Fung does this. We have the fed state, which is a high insulin state where we're storing food as energy. And we have the fasted state or low insulin state where we are actually using food as energy. So insulin actually stops the body from burning fat. Okay, insulin stops the body from burning fat. Think of insulin as fat storing. So let's go back to the topic, the fridge and the freezer. And if you guys haven't watched last week's episode or the calorie debunking in and out, it's good to go back, especially to the fridge and freezer, and just refresh on that if you haven't seen it or you just need a refresher, because it is a lot of information. That's why I'm chunking it in smaller sections for you. So we talked about the fridge and the freezer last week. And we said when insulin levels are low, we can access our fat stores for energy. So we said our fat stores are in alignment or similar to what we call the freezer for energy, right? It takes more work to get food out of the freezer. It's not as easily accessible. But when our insulin levels drop, they don't just allow us to access the fat stores. Low insulin levels actually trigger fat burning for energy. That's huge, guys. Our bodies want to run on glucose and glycogen because it's easier to access, but actually the most efficient way to burn energy is to actually be burning our fat stores. So when we access the freezer, we burn the fat as stored energy that was stored as energy, okay? We can still have glycogen available in the liver when this happens. It's kind of like we still have food left in the fridge. We didn't empty the whole fridge out, but we decided to go to the freezer next to it, the side-by-side freezer, and take out the food from the freezer. So the key is where your insulin levels are at. Are they high or are they low? Our bodies were designed to have these different energy stores to survive in prehistoric times, okay? So this is a very natural process for our bodies to burn energy, because in prehistoric times, we didn't have access to food like we do now. We have access to food all the time, very easy to access, very easy to prepare, because things are highly processed and readily accessible at all times, right? In fact, they usually make the higher processed, more readily available foods even cheaper than Whole Foods, which is crazy, right? So our bodies were designed to be able to burn the food we ingest as immediate energy, and then we have our intermediate glycogen stores when our meals go down and we need to burn energy. And then when we haven't had a meal for and our insulin levels drop, well, then we can go in and burn our fat stores, and that's a very normal process. But because our bodies were never designed to have the amount of food readily available and the types of food we eat in the United States all the time at our fingertips, we are now in a crisis in the United States. We are actually in an epidemic. Half the population of the US is either diabetic or pre-diabetic. Let me say that again. Half of the United States population is either diabetic or pre-diabetic, guys. That's how big an epidemic this problem is. And part of it leads to it's coming from obesity and how we ingest food and the access to all of this processed high sugar, high carb foods that we live on as the mainstay in the United States. Okay. And that's why I'm on this platform trying to educate you, because it took me a while to understand all the ins and outs. And as I research this and get those aha moments, I want to share that with you, because the information is there. It's just not being shared with us in a way that we can apply it. And my goal is to help you live a healthier lifestyle. I want your health span to equal your lifespan. Okay. So then we have insulin resistance, and this is a big word we talk about. It's thrown out there all the time. Insulin resistance is also known as metabolic syndrome and prediabetes, same thing. And it occurs when insulin levels are persistently kept at high levels. So when we're eating, and then we're eating very frequently throughout the day, even if we're eating small, frequent meals, we're eating constantly, and our bodies were not designed to have constant access to food. So when we're constantly eating, even if it's small, frequent meals, our insulin levels never go down. Okay. And when those insulin levels stay high all the time, that's what leads to problems with weight, because the excess energy is stored as fat, and there's no cap on how much fat we can store, right? So insulin's main job is to take the glucose, which is our sugar, out of the bloodstream and move it into cells to use as energy later. When you have insulin resistance, your cells are no longer, quote unquote, sensitive to insulin. So that means that normal levels of insulin are no longer able to move the glucose into the cells, okay? The cells are resistant. And this leads to a buildup of glucose in the blood. Well, our bodies are really smart, and they have compensatory mechanisms. So how does our body compensate? Because we know we don't want high levels of sugar in the blood, because it's very damaging to us. It's like a toxin, okay? So we can't have that much sugar in the blood. So what does our body do when it's not responding to the insulin? Our bodies produce more insulin. We make extra insulin, and we're like bullies. Our bodies are bullying that glucose, that sugar, into the cells. We're forcing the glucose to get into the cells by giving it way more insulin than we did before, so that it will respond. And the result is we have these constant high levels of insulin, and then we're blocking our ability to burn fat. Okay. And remember, insulin equals fat storage. So those high levels of insulin are then leading to creating more fat. So in summary, two things must happen to burn fat, right? We must burn through most of our glycogen stores, and insulin levels must drop low enough to allow the release of fat stores for energy. We know that insulin stops the body from burning fat. Okay. So what are we going to talk about next? So this is part of a series I'm doing, and we're going to tie it all together. We did debunking calories in, calories out, and then we talked about the fridge and the freezer. So those two videos are available for you to watch, whether it's on YouTube, through my YouTube channel, or through my health and wellness page. And then Today, we talked about how we can go from fat storing to fat burning, and the key hormone in that is insulin. And next, I want to talk about hunger and metabolism and homeostasis to tie this all together so you can learn how your bodies are operating and burning fat instead of storing fat. And this all ties together, but because it's a lot of information, I'm giving it to you in smaller chunks. And it is something you may have to go back and rewatch. Once you understand why calories in and calories out truly doesn't work, you'll also understand why it's got a 99.2% failure rate. And we talked about that a couple of weeks ago. And so if you didn't watch that video, like I said, or the fridge and freezer video, I recommend you watch that. My mission is to positively impact your health and wellness through education and coaching to create generational health and a health span that is equal to your lifespan. Okay. And that just means that as long as you're alive, I don't want the end of your life to be like the last 10, 20 years of your life fighting chronic health issues, because that's not quality of life. I want you to have quality of life. So I'm really on a mission, and I'm passionate about educating you and walking beside you and giving you the tools I've found that are easy and sustainable to live a holistic health and wellness life. If you're frustrated with your current health, if you're wanting help creating a personalized plan and getting some tools that really do work, I have a whole slew of tools that I can utilize to help walk you through a health journey that meets your personal needs and goals. So just private message me or comment below to schedule a free health consult with me. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. This is the book. This is the picture of the book. I happened to order it on Amazon. I read it in less than 5 days. It was such an easy read. It is written for lay people. You do not need to be medical to read this, but it's packed with great information on how your bodies work. So we're going to continue this topic next week and talk more about hunger and metabolism, like I promised, and it will all tie everything together so that you get the big picture. If you have any chronic illness, if you're taking medications, any kind of medical condition, or followed by a healthcare provider, physician, then before starting any of these types of health plans and programs, you really need to reach out to them and get their input, since they know you best. My information is for education purposes. It's not to replace guidance given to you by your personal healthcare provider who knows you best. Grateful for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope it brought value to you, and I look forward to getting to speak with you again very soon.